Mafia, I need your help. No, this is not an April Fool's Day joke. The bosses came to me this morning and they said we have issued a sub battle for the month of April. So fitting that it would be during the NFL draft month. But this is what it looks like. It's a clean slate. The Bills breakdown, Patriots today, Jets report, and Dolphins today all have 0 subs in the month of April. And it is our job to beat the living shit out of all 3 of these channels. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, lock us in, and help us win this AFC East sub battle. All right, so the Bills, today's episode, getting away with some highway robbery. I have to tell you, what Brandon Beane has been doing this offseason is nothing short of perfect. I'm going to explain all of the moves that have been made so far and how the Bills are getting away with highway robbery coming up in this episode of the Bills Breakdown. Mr. Beane's been making some moves, and they are great moves at that. This offseason for the Bills has been very, very good. In fact, I was reading a recent article that was talking about the offseason grades, not just free agency, but offseason grades in general. And the Bills were on a short list of the top 5 in 2025 for who had the best offseason so far. I don't think they were number 1. I think there were 4, maybe 5. But there have been 3 particular areas that the Bills have been excelling in this offseason. Free agency acquisitions, the re-signings that we made, and of course, kind of a re-signing as well, Josh Allen's extension. Now, we're going to break all of these down in today's episode, and we're going to start with the free agency acquisitions because there have been a lot of them. Now, a couple of them, again, have played for the Bills prior, Dane Jackson being one of them. We re-signed a couple of guys, but let's just go through the actual names really quickly here. Khalil Shakir, we re-signed. Terrel Bernard, we re-signed. Greg Rousseau, we re-signed. Josh Allen, we restructured, re-signed. But then we start getting into some actual acquisitions from other teams. Joshua Palmer comes over from the Chargers, 3-year, $36 million deal. Michael Hoyt from the Rams. Darrington Evans, Ty Johnson, Reggie Gilman, Joey Bosa, who we're going to talk about here in just a second. He comes from the Chargers as well. Larry Ogunjobi, who comes from the Steelers, albeit not going to be able to play in the first 6 games. But you get guys like Damar Hamlin that we re-signed. Dane Jackson comes from the Panthers after being released and re-signs with the Bills. So all of these moves, majority of them on the defensive side of the ball, have led me to believe that the Bills are attacking the weakest spot of their team, which was their defense last year. When you go 13-4, it's really hard to say that you need to improve on offense. But the number 1 acquisition we made all season was the big fella right here, Joey Bosa. Best free agent addition for the Bills. I'm not saying he was the best in all of football, but for the Bills, this was number 1, and I'm going to tell you why. When it comes to taking big swings on positions, I prefer my GMs, my coaches, to take big swings at the positions that matter the most. The most important one being quarterback, the second most important being left tackle, the third most important is the guy that gets after the quarterback. So quarterback, guy who protects quarterback, and then the guy who gets after him. And Joey Bosa, albeit not the same guy that he was when he entered the league, can still give you massive upside production. I understand he has not gotten over 7 sacks in 3 seasons. But if we're talking about a guy who can remain healthy, we're seeing a guy that can give you for $12 million a year, 10+ sacks. Now again, everything is dependent upon the Bills, Joey Bosa, remaining healthy. So I look at this and I say, excellent job by Brandon Beane to go out and take a big swing, because for the right price at $12 million on a 1-year deal, you're basically saying, go prove it. Go give us something that we have not had since we acquired Von Miller. And that's called building from the outside in. Defensive end was a glaring need, and Brandon Beane took a big swing, and he said, you know what, if it doesn't work out, we only signed him to a 1-year deal. We can move off of it very quickly. He can test the free agency market in 2026. But if it works out, why not another 2-year extension? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We have to see how the season plays out. But Joey Bosa is one of those players that we absolutely could have used. He's not Nick. He's not Khalil Mack. He's not Trey Hendrickson or Myles Garrett. But at $12 million for a guy that could give you 10-plus sacks, you could hit it out of the park. But I want to know something. Name your favorite Bills free agency edition. I have to pencil in Joey Bosa. That's just my take. But what say you? Put it down in the comments of today's video. All right, let's go on to our next big highway robbery move, the re-signings. Yes, we've talked about these a couple of times, but the Bills locked up the players that they needed to that added great value to the team last year. Terrel Bernard, Greg Rousseau, Khalil Shakir on the offensive side of the ball. He was your wide receiver one last year. Christian Benford, we just signed to that 4-year, $76 million contract. And, of course, number 17, the Prince himself, Mr. Josh Allen. Now, let's talk about Christian Benford for a second. Signed a 4-year, $76 million contract, which, by the way, is a steal, considering Spotrac had him originally listed as a 4-year projection worth $93 million. Let that sink in. He took $17 million less. Or 16. Yeah, no, 17. My math is mathing right now. But let's look at what he did last year. This is only scratching the surface, in my opinion, of what Christian Benford's going to become. I would like to see the tackles get up a little bit higher, maybe in the 80, 81, 82. The pass breakups is great. Interceptions could go up, but he's also a very physical corner. 2 forced fumbles. So there's a very short list of guys that I would pay the bag to, Derek Stingley being one of them, who got 3 years, $90 million. But Benford, who's not necessarily at the level of Stingley yet, can still absolutely prove himself. Now, I realize he needs to stay healthy. He was injured last year, or had some injuries last year. But for a guy that you found in the late rounds, you couldn't ask for a better find than Christian Benford. And you absolutely locked up your cornerback one. Mark it down, Mafia. I love it. I know you love it, so scale it for me. Rate the Christian Benford contract. 1 through 10. We're going to say 10 being great and 1 being awful. So we're not going to say it's 1. No, that's bad. I'm going to go and pencil in an 8.5. And not a 10 only because there are still some questions about Benford's health. But for the price, for where you found him in the draft, and for the production that you got last year out of him, it's an 8.5. You know what? I'm going to round it up. I'm going to give it a 9. I'll give it a 9 for sure. And lastly, it wouldn't be a great offseason without doing something Josh Allen related, would it? So Josh Allen goes out and he signs with the Bills for 6 years, $330 million. Now, this is MVP we're talking. We're not just talking MVP, actually. I'm gonna scratch that. We're talking Hall of Fame, Josh Allen. Let's take a look at what he did the last couple of seasons. I mean, do I even have to say anything? I know he turns the ball over, but you know who else turned the ball over a bunch? Brett Favre. And Josh Allen is bigger, stronger, faster, more mobile, and throws just as many touchdowns as Favre did. We are talking on a short list of potentially being a top 5 quarterback of all time. Period. Probably the greatest Bill ever. Now, I realize you might say, well, no, Jim Kelly, because they got to 3 Super Bowls. If Josh Allen wins a Super Bowl, he's the greatest Bill ever. Greatest Bills quarterback ever, greatest Bill ever. 100%. I firmly believe that. And his contract, like I said, is actually kind of a steal. You're getting him at $55 million a year, and we are currently talking about, I don't know if you guys saw this, the Bears have had these rumors going around of Caleb Williams trying to become the next billionaire quarterback, albeit it's kind of extreme, and maybe there's a little bit of satire in it. But how long before we get up to $500 million? $600 million. The fact that we were able to get him at $55 million a year for the next 6 years is a great move. And I know what you're thinking. Well, that's still a ton against the cap. Relax. They can restructure it. They will restructure it. Josh Allen is all about helping out the team. We've seen that in years past. I don't believe he's going to demand $55 million a year every single year for the next 6 years. He will restructure it, and that is exactly why the Bills have gotten away with highway robbery. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this right now. My two teams making it to the Super Bowl in 2026, so this next coming season, 2025-2026 season, the Washington Commanders and the Buffalo Bills. Throwing it out there. All right, let's end the show with a little bit of fun, shall we? It is April Fool's Day, so I wanted to give it a little bit of a whimsical feel. Let's have Mr. Nick Lopez, who's on the ones and twos. Mr. Producer Lopez, give it a spin, sir. Tick, 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 tick. It's a wheel of impressions, by the way, so I'm going to do one of these impressions, whatever one it lands on. Winnie the Pooh. I haven't done a Pooh impression in a long time. Pause. All right, here we go. Ready? Hello, Piglet. I could show you the jar of honey. It's like a micro impression. I don't know. If you thought that was terrible, let me know in the comment section below. You can grade my impression A, B, C, D, or F. I'll give it a solid, I'll give that a B, right? Like, that's not horrible, but it's not like the best one you've ever heard. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the episode. Remember to like the video, subscribe. Remember, the AFC East sub-battle begins today. Lock us in. Premier destination for all Bills content. My name is Moose. Until next time, be cool.